Hi, I'm Ashley McBride. I've known about these Shady Ladies for a very long time, and I love to hear their stories. Their tales and opinions are not for the faint of heart, and this podcast is not suitable for children, but then neither is the music business. So get comfortable and settle in for a trip, because you're listening to the Shady Ladies of Music City.
I'm Evelyn.
And I'm Susan. Some people refer to us as
The Shady Ladies of Music City. So today, the Shady Ladies are going to talk with good friends for many, many years, Beverly Keel and Tracy Gershon. These two women have done virtually everything there is to do in the music business. And unlike Susan and I, they're still active. So we want to talk about how things have changed from then when we were around to now when they're still active and having their finger on the pulse of the business.
First of all, you're still active. You're doing a dang podcast. I say
but
that
this is
counts
like
for
this
something.
this is not that active. I mean,
It's because you're sitting down.
well, you're very active. You both are. I mean, Beverly, you're particularly active. The head of the
College of Media and Entertainment at
That's right.
MTSU.
at MTSU.
Yeah.
That's a huge position.
Yeah, it's a big job. It's a lot. I was chair of the Department of Recording Industry for about 6 years, and I'm in my 5th year as dean, and it keeps me busy. Yeah, and I
But
still
you've
work
done
with Jamie
great things,
Johnson.
and you do great things in terms of, it seems to me, highlighting MTSU with the Grammys and all these
Oh.
different events. And I see you, all the time, it seems, presenting
Yeah.
To
something.
me, she's elevate. Like, I don't even know. I mean, I knew about MTSU, and not because I know Beverly, but literally, she just brings so much more to, as far as I'm concerned. It's like
You do.
Yeah.
I mean, I always thought of MTSU as like a lesser.
Susan.
Ah,
Well, but
Susan,
not now.
That's just rude. But it's not lesser, but it didn't
before you
focu-
got there.
It didn't focus. It didn't have a lot of promotion.
It
So
didn't.
now I'm just sharing the good news of everything we're doing.
And Beverly, of course, is a great journalist and wrote for the Nashville Banner and tons of other newspapers and magazines. And it's really how I first met her. And then she's worked at many record companies. And
Not many.
oh,
Did
well,
you work at a lot of
couple.
record companies? You worked at
Well, I worked at Polydor, which has the record of losing the most money in the shortest amount of time. Lost probably $18 million. And
Who
I
was
like
who-
to say we took Toby Keith from a platinum artist to a gold artist.
Sad
I
about
was there-
Toby.
I know.
Wasn't your fault though.
I was there about 18 months, and then I spent a couple of years
With
head of
Jason.
publicity at UMG Nashville. Yeah, Jason Owen got me that job. Yeah.
Well, I remember when I first met Tracy, it was at the ACM Awards. It was at Knott's Berry Farm. I was
my
with
God.
Lib and Randy
Oh,
Travis.
my.
And Tracy came over to us, to me and Lib, and said, I want to meet you, to Lib. And she said, we're the only two women managers in the country music business, and we should know each other.
Yeah.
And you were managing Rosie Flores.
And
at
maybe
the
Jan
time.
Brown. at the
Maybe
time.
Jan, I'm not
Yeah, I
sure.
can't remember. I mean, I had little artists. She had the big one, but
But tell how you ended up getting the money to make the Rosie demo.
oh my God, I can't believe you remembered that.
Well, it's a great story.
So, managing this artist named Rosie Flores. I was living in North Hollywood at the time with my husband, and he was going to be producing their demos. Remember back then, you couldn't do it on your computer. You had to go into a studio. It was rather expensive. And we were trying to figure out how to make money to make demos. And he was, well, I can sell a guitar. I said, no, don't sell guitars. Never sell a guitar. And I was looking in the paper and they were advertising for people for game shows. And I went, I'll go on a game show.
No,
And he
you're
went, what?
kidding.
And he said, what? I go, yep, I'm going on a game show. So I dressed that. Back then you had to audition. It wasn't anything online. So I literally put the dumbest outfit on. I even put like I made a really kind of ridiculous hairdo. And I went in and I told him I was a senior citizens aerobics instructor and just jumped up and down like a wild ape. And there I was and got on the show. And it was
What show was it?
Crazy show. It was called Hot Streak. It came over from London and it was kind of a lame show. But I literally managed, it was myself and 4 other women who I'd never met who were my teammates. And of course I made myself team captain because we won most of the money
Surprise.
in the bonus round. And Steve was playing that night, and every time he'd come home, he was playing late at night, and I'd have a post-it on the door. It said $300 still on the show. Long story short, I won like $1,500, which is exactly what we needed for the demo, and I think some weird chair or something like that, or a suitcase. And that's how we went in the studio.
Unbelievable.
But that's what people did back then in the day. I mean,
to raise money. You did anything you had to do.
You had to be
raise
scrappy,
money.
and particularly women. Women always made it work. It didn't matter, how
That's
overwhelming.
a great story, though. And I never heard of that show.
Oh, yeah. No. Yeah. And it was one season. But somebody found it on tape.
$1,500 was a lot of money back then.
Yeah, but that's what you needed to go in the studio.
Whoa.
And we went in the studio, and she got a deal on Warner Brothers, And back then too, I was working like jobs. I was like working for this, you'd sign up for these agencies, and I literally had 5 different jobs going, and I'd get up at 7 in the morning and, be all professional and call Jim, be calling Warner Brothers because it was 9 o'clock there. I'd get up at 7 and, pretend like I was this hotshot manager and then go to my crazy jobs. But like you said, you did what you had to do.
What you had to do. And you've done a lot of things, because then you relocated to Nashville. You've been in publishing for years. You've been in A&R for years. You worked at labels and management and, everything that you could do except publicity, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, you promote in your own way.
Smart.
Yes, we always did make less than the bus driver.
I know. That's what Evelyn's big line was.
Well, I will tell you, and publicity fees have not gone up much since the early 90s.
They have.
Not a lot.
She's saying they haven't. She knows better than us.
Well, still, it's not. That's you haven't seen back then it was $4,000 or $5,000 a month.
No. We knew $2,500 a month.
Okay, well, it's still,
that was the highest that we got.
If you look at inflation now, it's still not where it should be. So.
Yeah, I wouldn't publicity. I think I thought about publicity at one time, but man, I'm in awe of people like Beverly. Like with Beverly, when we need a press release, it's like it would take me hours, and it's like in 5 minutes she's got something whipped up, and it's great. We just,
That's like Evelyn. I remember when a lot of artists died, they would call Evelyn to try to do the announcement.
Well, the publicist always has to write the obituary.
When Tammy died, remember you had to come into the office. We had just taken over Asylum. And we had to go into the office late at night to do the obituary for Tammy.
I'll never forget that week. I did the cover story for People magazine. And we were so thrilled they put her on the cover.
Yeah.
So now tell us, do women, you two have sort of been involved in this organization for women in the music business and the whole, or country music business and the whole tomato comment and all of those things where you both
Was that Martina that made that tomato comment?
No, she
was responding to the tomato comment.
No, the reason and why the tomato is our logo, we actually changed the conversation before that happened, but this radio consultant in writing had said, if you want your ratings to increase, take women out, because he goes it's like a salad. When I program, the men are the substance and the lettuce. The women are the tomatoes.
Like the tomato's not the substance.
Yeah.
like lettuce is more of a substance than tomato.
And then actually Martina jumped in. She was great. She was one of the first people to jump in and say, and she made, what was her shirt say? I love it. I'm a tomato. And
right.
John was wearing a shirt. She was great. But that's how we got our logo. We didn't have a logo before, and we decided that should be our logo, the tomato, for Change the Conversation.
Well, and I went to one of the Change the Conversation meetings a couple of years ago, and I was shocked that the room was packed with women, and I didn't know any of them,
right?
And it was so startling to me, and they were all young and wearing super high heels and very impressive looking,
like we used to do.
Right.
I wore
there were
high
so
heels
many
every
of them.
day to work for years. Candies, remember Candies?
Oh my God! And
Fuck me pumps.
I mean, you didn't go into the office in sloppy kind of,
like I couldn't have gone into the office looking like this.
No. Although I will say something. I was thinking
in a
about
real
this.
office. I mean, not like in the houses that I had on Music Row, but a corporate structure.
I was
those
thinking
were
about
offices.
Yeah, I was also thinking about this morning. This is random, but I was talking about difference, like with women and how hard women have it. Guys get that pass. They can look like schlubs and they're cool.
They can, and
the
they
minute
do.
a woman does not up her game, something, especially if you're an artist, You know,
Oh,
these
yeah.
guys, like especially in country, they can look like they just got off the tractor and it's hip, but women gets chastised.
They do. I remember when I was managing Lori Morgan, it was a huge thing. And I had to go to a meeting and they were complaining about Lori exposing her chest, which is
From
now
cleavage.
like nothing.
Oh yeah, well yeah.
Now she could go naked to these events and no one would say anything. But they were yelling about it and it's not good and it's not good for country music. And I stood up and I had on a low-cut dress and I said, this is just the way it is.
Yeah, I mean, women are still held to a different standard. It's
Yeah.
still harder to break a female artist.
Listen, when I first got here, women didn't sell merchandise
Right. Okay.
on the road. I mean, women just didn't sell. I mean, it was only the guys that sold merchandise and women would sell a small amount. But, women were relegated to, the small merchandise sales.
And women were usually relegated to the publicity position at the record label.
And they were
Exactly,
also
yeah.
relegated to opening for a male act.
Well,
if
those
you were
the
lucky.
artists.
And listen, they could never now, they couldn't headline a festival. They couldn't do any
No.
of that.
Yeah. They're not going to sell any tickets. So what's the point of trying? That was one of the biggest
Right.
shocks when I got to Nashville and started meeting with labels and stuff about different clients. And it was such a defeatist attitude before you even got started. It was all the reasons why you were going to fail, why there was no point in putting the big push on the female artist as opposed to the male artist. And it shocked me because traditionally, when you look back on all forms of music, a lot of the women really stand out.
They said we talked about this. We had a meeting. Remember, one of our third meetings that changed the conversation. We talked. It was at CAA, and we had people from branding, and they said, "Look, 85% of consumers are women. Women
They
are the
are.
ones who buy, and they want to buy from other women." They said, if you think about it, when a woman breaks, they're the ones who has the more magazine covers. There's more, for public.
And they said they had more corporate interest
yeah.
for female artists for endorsements than men.
They do. They only, males endorse trucks.
Hmm.
I mean, that's been their big bailiwick is trucks or beer. But, women have done a lot of endorsements. I see now that Kelsey Ballerini has a ton of
Yes.
endorsements.
Hey, I say there's a reason why Alexis and Siri are both female voices. You listen,
You're
think
right.
about it. Think about it.
Well, back to your original then and now premise. So then you didn't have, well, you two were the first females to run a major label.
And the last.
No.
No, because
no,
now
no.
we have Cindy Mabe and Chris Lacey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, you had a lot of women in publishing and performance rights organizations. So you had Frances Preston at BMI, you had Connie Bradley at ASCAP, you had Diane Petty at CSAC,
Diane Petty, right.
and then
Yeah.
you had at publishing companies, you had Karen Conrad and
right.
Celia, and
That's right, Celia
who was
Froelich.
in SAI? Cavender. What
Oh,
was-
Maggie.
Oh, yeah,
Maggie
Maggie
Cavender.
Cavender was there, and you had Bonnie Garner managing Marty Stewart, and there were just, Pam Lewis was co-managing Garth Brooks. So
Right.
when I was at the Banner covering stories, there were
God, the banner. That's a word I haven't heard
there
in
were
years.
females everywhere
Yeah.
that there was like role models everywhere. You had Evelyn, you had Liz Thiels, and then we went for a while, and it just kind of went away. Now you've always since then you've had female managers, Ann Edelblut's and one that's been with Carrie Underwood. Since
there's
the
a lot of
beginning.
A lot of
And who's
female
one of the
managers
managers,
now.
Luke Bryan?
Carrie
Yeah.
Carrie Edwards, Janet Weir manages Maren Morris.
Yeah, there's lots of women
I'm
now in
telling you,
management.
women are. I think women because of their nurturing ability make great managers too. They just
Yeah, I agree.
And don't forget Marion Kraft.
Mariana.
Mariana.
Oh,
Mary
so great.
Hilliard.
And
Yeah,
they're- yeah.
one of the
so
outstanding
We got a lot
ones.
of
Well, it's certainly different than the day of we're the only two women managers
Oh my gosh!
in
Yeah,
country
it was
music.
weird. Yeah, I was even told like, "Are you sure you want to who do you want to go with?" And I didn't know anything. I was so young too. I was like, "Oh, do you want to manage me?" Sure. And but that's why I looked and I'm like, "There's and I'd heard about Evelyn Shriver, and then, you were
right. Very intimidating.
Yeah, but you were also the first. Like I remember when Jan Brown. I go, "We've got to get Evelyn. we need Evelyn on our side." But yeah,
I would say Evie's like a young.
Oh,
like,
Evie's fabulous.
Evie's like, the young Evelyn Shriver.
Evie is,
Mhm.
I don't know what the word is, beyond impressive, but she's
Yeah.
next level. And I'm so,
She's so smart.
God,
I
she's
sit
so
there and
smart.
listen
I'm
to
so
her
proud that
sometimes.
she represents Nashville.
Yeah.
Because I think she's the best in Nashville, and her
great.
professionalism is top notch, and she's just
And she's educated and
firm
she's
but
articulate.
kind. Oh yeah.
And I work a lot with Carla Sachs and Asha Goodman
Yeah.
because in more in the Americana, because I've really shifted from country to Americana. And
Who is, I forget who Carla Sachs is.
Sachs and Co. She's out in New York. Carla, and they have
Tons of
Chris
publicity.
Stapleton and Maren Morris and Brandy Carlisle and Brandy Clark and a lot of my and they're just I think. And they got Luke Combs now, but they're again just a lot of integrity to me, just a lot of integrity. And I think, Evelyn, I remember this from you. There's, some publicists like do everything. You were really good about not the right thing to do and balancing. And I think to me, that's a publicist is know when to say no. And sometimes when to push to say yes, like this is important. Yeah, you may, and I remember that from you. You were just like, you don't need to do this. You really need to do this, and trusting your publicist to know that they're looking at what not just now but long term. Well, that's what the job of a lot of people in the music business, managers or publicists, we have to manage. That's why I say manage expectations.
Right.
Well, and Tracy, you're doing a lot of interesting stuff now as a person who's done so much, but you've been working with Brandy Carlisle and Brandy Clark. And I don't know who.
If you're gay and your name's Brandy, I'm your person.
The person.
How many Grammys did Brandy Clark win?
She won one. She's been nominated 17 times.
Wow.
And she just 17-time nominated, and she just won her first.
She's so good. I just can't believe how talented she is.
She's unbelievable. And we talked about this a little bit. She, you start out in country, she loved country, but, she has really moved into, she's such an amazing singer-songwriter into the Americana world that has really embraced her. And it's even broader than that, and still country, because if it was, I said her last record would have been that Patti Loveless record that we all loved 10 years ago. The music has changed.
You mean
so
20
much.
years ago.
Or 20 years ago. You're right, 20 years ago. But no, Brandy is just a phenomenal talent.
And a songwriter, because she
and a
wrote a lot
songwriter.
of the songs
Oh,
on
yeah.
Casey Musgrave's first album with Shay
and Miranda, and
McAnally.
and
And
Miranda
don't
Lambert.
forget Shucked.
Yeah, and Shucked, and she just
The
wrote her.
Tony nomination.
Yeah, she's just, it's really a tribute. She's really worked hard, and it's not been an overnight success. And it's great for her for the years she's had to look back, because she really did it. She put in the work, and I think with especially not just the Grammys, but just the accumulation of people knowing who she is and acknowledging her, going, okay, this is paying off. But it's taken a while.
Look how long it took for Shucked to get off the ground. I mean, they were working on that for years,
9
and doing
years, 10
readings
years.
and, having one-night shows and stuff for years before it. And it did great on Broadway.
It is so good.
It's so fun.
Oh, it's
Yeah,
so great.
and it's gonna it starts
gonna
out in
come
London.
here.
It's going on the road. Yeah, it's really great. It's really, and I'm kind of a Broadway snob, I have to say, and so I had to go, because I work with Brandy, and I loved it, and I've seen it 4 times, and every time I laugh harder and I get more things out of it. But she's so talented, and I'm grateful. Like you said, right now I'm in a point in my career where I'm just working with stuff that people I love, people first, and of course the music that I love. And I've got this wonderful little tribe between Brandy Carlisle and Brandy Clark, and now the Sister Strings that I work with.
Well, and you've always done interesting people. I mean, I have to give that to you. All the artists that you associated yourself with over the years have always been interesting artists with good music. And, your long relationship with Emmylou Harris. And now, Brandy Carlisle, which, is super impressive because, she, in my view, because I haven't been that active, she came out of nowhere and was all of a sudden like huge. And I so liked her, music, and respected the position she was taking and the projects that she got involved with. I mean, I love that she revived Tanya Tucker, because Tanya's always been one of my favorite people.
And you know what she said, and I was to say that I've always been attracted to the outliers. You know what I mean? Just the ones, and once in a while they hit, like with Raoul, like from the Mavericks.
I first heard the Mavericks through Tracy.
Right.
She brought me a
and I'm like,
cassette from Miami.
And I've never said, oh, it's going to be big. If I say that I jinx, I just like what I like. With Brandy Carlisle, you said out of nowhere. That's a 20-year journey.
I know, but it never came near country music.
And
and now, everybody in country music wants to sort of embrace her as, she's one of us. But meanwhile, where were they?
And also, this is what I was going to say about Tanya, when we talk about women, she, because Tanya's always had that reputation of being, crazy. difficult, crazy, whatever. And when Brandy Carlisle called, because you have to understand that was she looked up to Tanya as she was growing up. She thought because Tanya was tough and she was tough. And so she called and said, I want to produce Tanya Tucker. And I will say, I was like, that's not going to be easy. And she's, difficult. I said, this is her reputation. I know her, I don't know her well. And Brandy put me in my place. She said, you know what? She didn't do anything different than George Jones and Waylon, but because she was a woman, she got a bad rap. And I went, you're fucking right.
Yeah, she was totally right. That's
and you know what? And it was like, it made me step back and as a feminist, and I went, oh, I'm sorry, I take that back. And she was so right. And that's because she said, Tanya got the bad rap for not doing anything different than any of the guys did.
Exactly. And she's always, even like during the years that you would say Tanya's career was going nowhere, and I would run into her at various events, she was always, super nice and super helpful and super cooperative.
And so humble.
And when Tammy died, we wanted her on the Tammy tribute album, of course, and she immediately agreed, and she was going to do Your Good Girl's Gonna Go Bad. And at the last minute, the label wouldn't allow her to do it.
They wouldn't allow her to do it.
So we got KT like literally an hour before they were mastering the record to just sing on the tracks because we had to take Tanya off.
And Tanya's still now, as good as ever. If you go see her, she's like that voice. I think the more she smokes, the more she drinks, it's even better.
I think so too. Yeah. I think she sounds the best she's ever sounded.
Yeah. And she really, a real appreciation, is for her and Brandy and Shooter Jennings just getting in there and Brandy.
And it working so well, and that was what's so great. So often these things don't work, even with the best of intentions. But
I got to say now, when you say now and then, now there's so much music, so much more music coming at you because of, anybody can create music. It's hard to keep, even if you're trying to keep up, it's hard to keep up.
Let me just say though, Tracy keeps up and knows more people than anyone I know. She is the great connector. She's the great connector, and anybody I meet in New York or LA knows you. And you're constantly hooking people up. It's really an art form. And the other day at the Grammys, I looked down who was on the main floor where Taylor Swift and all the stars were. There's Tracy right there in her
That's
in her
what
floral
Steve showed me
suit.
a picture of where you were sitting.
Sister Strings played these two women that I managed that played with Joni Mitchell. They played cello and violin. And they put them on the floor, and I was like, great, you and your friends, and I'll, be watching and waving. And that morning they went, you have to be there with us. I was like, and I told Steve, and my husband Steve hadn't, he's won a Grammy 19 years ago and he never comes with me, and he just says, nah, that's okay, because he knows I'm working and running around. So this is the year he came. And he's sitting down. It was really funny because we were in the very front, and at one point, I can't remember who was playing, and I nudge him. I go, dude, you better get up because you're going to be like the old white guy sitting there on the chair. You're going to be up there dancing.
He was going to be like Ben Affleck.
With J-Lo.
Grumpy face.
No, he loved it. He was having so much fun, but we had, it was fun. But, look, and I think when you say I know a lot of people, I swear to God, this sounds cheesy. I just like people. I like meeting people. I like knowing what their story is. And it really comes from an authentic, never like, oh, that person can do something for me. I just like people. And sometimes they end up being somebody I need to work with. Yeah. But, I like to know. And my husband's the same way. He's better. He talks to telemarketers. He'll be on the phone for 20 minutes. And I'll be like, who are you talking to? Some guy trying to sell. I go, hang up the phone. But, it's really just about really liking people, because I think everybody has something to offer.
And that's the truth, And
I like people too.
Yeah. Yeah.
But not as much now.
We've gotten old and crabby.
As I've gotten older, I like people less, and I want to know their stories less.
You know what it is? Sometimes I think, and we talked about the pandemic, I think as you get older and too, you realize you have your, you just want, long, you don't want to be like hi, how are you doing? You want meaningful conversations with people.
No, I'm still shallow.
You're not shallow.
What'd you say?
I said, no, I'm still shallow.
Oh, Beverly.
Well, Beverly, you still stay in publicity a little bit, don't you?
Yeah,
you
I work with
Jamie
Johnson,
who's a fabulous artist.
Yeah, I've been with Jamie for a dozen years or so.
I heard he did unbelievably at the Alabama concert.
every time he does one of those, he's always the absolute best on the
He's
whole
always
show.
the standout.
He is.
He's
Always the
standout.
best. On the Willie Nelson tribute that aired on CBS.
Right, we saw that.
He was the best. He's phenomenal.
Yeah, he's
And he's such a good guy, too.
Oh,
You know,
yeah,
not
we're-
that I know
we're-
him so
we're
well,
close,
but,
yeah.
You know, the interesting thing about Jamie is if you've ever seen his early publicity photographs from RCA,
Yeah.
he is a really good-looking guy.
oh, he's still good looking.
And now he looks like,
Don't you talk about my man, Susan.
Yeah.
listen, what's that beard?
I'll come
I love
across
that
this
beard.
table. When my mom met him, she goes, "Well, I didn't even know you'd have such beautiful eyes."
Oh, he's
Yeah, he's
when
got
I
great
worked
eyes.
at Fitzgerald Hartley, we did his first show.
Oh,
This was
God, I
interesting.
forgot
I
about
forgot
that.
you worked at
yeah,
Fitzgerald.
that one of my
All right.
many things. Like we wouldn't we'd need a 3-hour podcast for everywhere I've worked, but we did his first showcase, and I'll never forget this. And I was just, and short hair, and the comments thing came back. This is killed me. He's just too country. That everybody passed on him
Who
because
said
he was
that?
too country. Every label.
Every label. It was the
Every
same
label.
with
Joe
Randy
signed him?
Travis.
Galante signed him.
Yeah, RCA signed him first.
Eventually,
And then he
eventually,
went to Luke Lewis and
Yeah.
It did
presented
in
a whole
color.
album. And Luke was like, "It's great. Don't change a thing."
yeah. But it was. I said this was the only format at one time where you were like,
Right.
it's too. You never heard it's too pop.
It's too rock.
And I'm like, it's too country. I mean, that voice. All you have to hear is that voice, and you're like, he could sing, anything, and it's just good. But that was.
And then he
where we
did
were
that
at.
whole tribute to
Hank Cochran.
Hey,
God,
Hank
I love
Cochran.
that
That was
album.
an unbelievable album.
Yeah.
You know, Jamie is his own little genius.
Jamie's brilliant.
He is.
And hysterically funny.
Yeah.
Sometimes his one-liners will they're like another level and will just slay me.
And he just stares at you and he says,
and
them.
he talks very slowly and he has long pauses. And then what he says is so profound. You're just like,
yeah.
it's like, well, that's why you're Jamie Johnson and I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
Because at first you think, oh, couldn't be more unlikely working, right? Beverly and Jamie so different. We're both incredibly loyal people. Like if Jamie is your friend, he will do anything and everything to help you if you need him.
Yeah.
And he has such respect for the people who came before him. George Jones, Merle Haggard,
definitely.
He does.
Timmy, and he had females as opening artist even before Change the Conversation started talking about it. And then he had women of color as his opening artist, before
Yeah.
we publicly, as National Music Equality, began encouraging that. So he has a fascinating life and lots of, he's a Marine and lots of experiences.
Yeah. He's a good guy. He's going to be so
Yeah,
good.
so
And you're doing a radio show,
Oh,
obviously.
I have a show on Sirius XM on the Beatles channel called Y'all Together Now.
Oh, y'all together. So
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
is the focus, pray tell?
The focus is just talking to Americana and country artists about the influence of the Beatles on them.
Beverly, how's the Nancy Jones thing going?
Good. We have the George Jones Scholarship. And then we have the class on the music and life of George Jones. And Nancy usually comes up for the very last class and talks to our students.
I want to take that class.
Are y'all thinking about doing memoirs?
You should.
No, because no one would really care.
I don't know. I feel like I already did a memoir with the first
that's
book
right.
about the time I was in prison
Well, but
in
that
Mexico.
was a long time ago.
It was. I don't know. I met an agent that wanted me to do a memoir, but I just can't bring myself to do it. I was going to call it From the Holy Land to Opryland.
Yeah. I think you guys should. You'd be so,
look, everybody you've worked with.
and I love,
Yeah, but people don't even care about them, let alone me talking about them.
I don't know, but you could do it from a perspective. Here's the thing. Beverly, we're like also your friendship that I think is so great, how you met and how your friendship has endured and how you've done different things. And I think there's such a power in female friendships and like that
I think
too.
there is too, and it hasn't been really explored that much since Thelma and Louise.
Well, you
Or
are
Oprah and
Laverne
Gail.
and Shirley.
What?
I used to call you
Oprah and
Laverne and
Gail.
Shirley.
Oprah and Gail.
I called them Laverne and Shirley when I first
yeah.
met. There's
More-
Laverne and
more-
Shirley.
Well, but I will say that but having each other, just like having Tracy and Leslie, our little trio, it strengthens you and gives you courage, and you feel like somebody has your
definitely.
back.
Exactly. And it makes it more fun when
Right,
you're,
right.
going to these
Yep.
events and there's all these crowds and, you it's nice to have backup, and men always have it, and nobody thinks anything of it. When women do it, it's, oh, they must be lesbians
I
or
know.
something.
What's interesting, I was very close to Patsy Bruce, and she had told me Frances Preston told the women of that era, like Rose Drake and the others that were power women in the industry, don't ever come to an event with a woman. Always come with a man. And, you know, Frances always, like Stan Morris was always with Frances.
He was her
Yeah.
guy.
Right, but you know what? Because at first I was like, oh man, that's not cool. But then later I thought, you know what? She may have been right for back in that day.
For her
Right.
time, definitely
Yeah.
right. Because, you know, we just barely snuck through. And now
Yeah.
I think it's a lot more relaxed. You know, first of all, you know, the business is embracing, you know,
Yeah.
lesbians and gay people. And
I don't think the business
to
is
some small
embracing
degree,
the
they're
very small
embracing them.
degree.
Yeah.
I don't think that country music, I mean, I think LGBTQ is not on the forefront of hardly
Well, I
anyone's-
think it's the world in general. Like if you look at young kids now, it's like almost like
They don't care.
They don't care.
Yeah.
Like somebody's gay or somebody trans. Like I talk to little ones and go, "Oh, he's gay." Like it's
Right.
just part of their life. It's, you know, country. There's still, you know, again, being a person of color, being a woman,
Yeah.
being,
Yeah, I
you
don't
know,
think the country has
gay.
embraced women of people of color that much. I mean,
Not
know,
at all.
No.
Not at all. I agree. I've been saying this in every podcast, and Evelyn disagrees with me, but I don't agree.
I see movement
I
from
hope
my
it's
time.
changing. Absolutely.
I mean,
Oh,
you know,
total
the fact
yeah.
that there can be a Kane Brown and there
Right.
can be, you know,
But there, you know,
Jimmy Allen to the
But in a way,
degree.
Jimmy
Yeah.
Allen
Didn't-
did himself in.
But
Yeah.
didn't Kane Brown sort of come outside the box
Yeah.
from
He
the
did.
traditional?
He did.
Yeah.
I don't know that he would have
Yeah.
been signed just
No, he
without-
never would have been signed.
and everybody says Darius Rucker, but
Right.
he was part of another group.
Right,
That
he was already
accepted.
famous
Yeah,
with
he was
Hootie.
already famous.
Still wasn't
exactly.
easy for him though.
That's to me the big game changer is like that country radio, sorry, isn't not the gatekeeper anymore, because there's a lot of things that people who have hits on country radio, they can't sell a ticket.
Little
There's a lot
Nas.
of people who can put seats, you know, put
Yeah.
butts in seats and don't have a radio hit. So that game, that
thing is
changed.
whole. That's what I thought. It's all changed. I mean, even looking at somebody like we were talking, Jamie. Jamie hasn't even made an album up until now in years and years and years, let alone released a single. But he works all the time, and people love to see him.
Well,
And-
that's the way people used to have to make it, was going on the road and getting a fan base, and you know
Or
that's
they needed
how,
radio. They're used to
Right.
it.
But you know,
Radio
my,
was the great,
a lot of
you
my
know.
students don't listen to terrestrial radio, and
Yeah.
they don't own a television.
Right.
It's so they'll watch.
it's a different world.
So instead of late night TV, they'll watch something shared from Fallon or Kimmel. If if it's good enough to be shared to have a lot of views, then they'll watch it. So it's a whole different world now. So it's, streaming and viral and all that sort. I mean, look, last year I worked with Oliver Anthony some.
Oh.
So he exploded last year, seemingly out of nowhere. He released the song "Richmond North of Richmond."
I know
yeah,
that.
yeah.
And
song.
it was #1 on the Billboard charts,
Came out of
and he got
TikTok, yeah.
Billboard Music Awards, all online. And it just had a sort of a common man theme that resonated with a lot of people. But he's selling out. He's doing 2 nights at the Ryman
Is
this
he?
spring. Yeah.
It's like Zach Bryan. That was,
Oh,
he was
right.
signed way
Out of-
after he was,
yeah.
so successful. And talk about a guy who doesn't really want to do interviews and
Yeah.
doesn't it?
Is he the
have
one
to.
that had to duet with Casey?
Yeah.
That was
But
a
I
great
think that's
song.
great. I'm so happy that people are breaking through without the support of country radio, because I think country radio has been one of the most crippling things to the format that's
Yep.
ever existed. As much exposure as it gives a song,
Right.
it tends to push the crappy stuff that sort of, stereotype country as always like, a ditty. And there's some
Right.
great music being made that never sees the light of
100%.
day.
And what artists used to have to go through and still do to an extent, where they had to go kiss the ring and they had to go and, spend their own money to go play a free show at radio,
Oh, I
hoping to get
know.
an ad. It was a lot,
And not getting the ad.
And not getting the
when
ad.
Evelyn and I were at Asylum, we had to pay for all these huge dinners, taking all these radio people out for steak dinners, and let me just get a bone and ribeye to take home for my son. And my grandmother would like a fillet. Could I just put that on the tab?
And you had to say yes. Yeah.
And you had to say yes. You never said no.
But I will say, with country radio, it is still important, and it helps in publicity, right? So if you're trying to get on the Today Show, you can say, oh, they have 3 #1 hits.
Right.
You have to have often certain chart positions to get on a red carpet or to get nominated for awards. So it's still important, but now there are other avenues, if you don't have that you didn't have 20 years ago.
Right.
Well, that's what's exciting to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where do you see most of the women landing now in the music business? I mean, are they getting the label jobs? Are they going into
Americana.
booking?
Well,
Well,
you mean in
just
terms
Americana.
of executive stuff?
Yeah.
I think, I think that's really opened up. You know, I think you've got like Sylvia, like I said, Chris Lacey. Look, I think Chris Lacey is she could do it on her own. I would say I hired Chris Lacey, so I'm very proud of her. But I think it's also I like those divisions at labels because she tends to be more creative. She's like the creative part, and then Ben is more the like administrative stuff. And I think people have different. It's like we're Tony Brown and Bruce Hinton.
Yeah.
Like sometimes you
need a counterpart.
Yeah, you need a counterpart.
I mean, and even for
Like you and
Susan and
Susan.
I, Susan's much more outgoing and in your face
Yeah.
and making you pay attention. And I tend to sit back and say nothing.
And Susan would say outrageous things, and then Evelyn would
Oh,
apologize.
always, yeah. Evelyn would get her back on track if but
Well, I will say, I'm a huge fan girl of Cindy Mabe. And in January, she had an event in Nashville that was attended by several hundred people. And it was very much like, this is my direction. This is my company. These are the artists we're doing. This is the direction. And Cindy is sort of a visionary. And I'm so in awe of her. I don't know how she does it all.
she's a great. She's a great marketing.
Great
mind.
marketing,
Is she?
but she gets the meaning of music. So she has like the heart and soul of an artist in the mind of a business person. And so she signed Chelsea to run A&R, and she's brought in, I think, a head of marketing or digital as a female, and there's another person that came in. So I do think, the sky's the limit now for women on the business side, because if you're managing an artist, like Carrie Edwards, right, your career is going to rise with the success of your artist. So, the challenge
the
is
power structure is shifting.
Like Marianne.
yeah,
Because I remember when Evelyn and I were doing Soundstage, which was that all music show we did on PBS.
Right.
And I wanted to book Miranda on the show. But Simon was managing Miranda
Right.
and Marianne was working for him. And Simon never thought that anyone was good enough to go on the show with Miranda. Years later, and she still hasn't done it, but years later, I met Marianne and I was like, couldn't believe how wonderful she is.
Marianne
Yeah.
is
she's fierce.
I met Marianne was like Miranda's third day today, and actually was Simon said, you need to get to know Marianne, and I did. Not only is she just a really great manager and really strategic, she's just, and it's hard because she's got a kind of really tough demeanor, but she is a softie and a sweet person inside. She's, you've got that kind of, tough outer layer, but she's a good,
And I think
she's good
she
people.
and Mary Hilliard are close.
Yeah.
And they support each other. And
Who?
Mary Hilliard, who's also a power broker in town and brilliant, and they support each other. And they're both artist managers. Mary manages
I think
Dirks and some other Dirk Bentley
Dirk Bentley
and a lot of others.
Yeah.
Yeah, she has a bunch of people.
Here's the thing that I think is so important when we talk about, and this, I want to go back to Change the Conversation. I think of anything we've done with Change the Conversation was telling women that they had to support each other. Because our first meeting, when we had all the young artists, the first time, and we said to them, look, you guys have been told that there's one slot for you, and that might be right. But if one starts going up, and at that time, Kelsey Ballerine, Memi had her first single, I go, you guys have to support this. You have to tweet about it. You have to show up, because a win for one is a win for all. And I think we've learned that in business, like you said, like having our team, and I have Beverly and Leslie and other friends where you support each other, and it's so important. And the artists have to do it.
It's everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll say one of the most rewarding parts of Change the Conversation has been the community of 20-something female singer-songwriters that have come together and found each other, because you can feel very alone, right? As an artist, you're out doing your own thing, and you think you're the only one that has these issues and problems. And they come together and they support each other, and they share clothes and they share advice. And Tracy and Leslie know more of the new artists than I did, but it was new artists they knew, and it was new artists no one knew. People who just moved to town that happened to hear about us would show up at a meeting, and it's been
That's
phenomenal.
really important, and it's something that didn't exist for a long time. I think it existed back in the real olden days of,
Right.
Loretta and George
Patsy.
and all of them, they hung out together and supported each other much more so.
But when we got
The
here,
era,
there was
when,
nothing like that.
as say Randy Travis on, everybody sort of became isolated. And when I look at it now, it seems like everybody's just into their own brand and their own posse. And it's like, this is my group, and everybody should turn to the wall backstage when we go through or something. It just seems to be very defined boundaries that it would be so good for a female artist to come together and support each other and create tours. Like years and years ago, I wanted to do a tour with women that would have extra security in the parking lot.
Right. I love that.
Because just going to a show can be scary for women if you're going, in separate cars. And just to kind of cater everything to a female experience of not being frightened and being able to park your car and not worry about it. And,
That's like I said, bringing it. The Girls Just Want a festival that Brandy has curated, and it's all. I mean, there's been a couple guys, but all women, and just
Where is it?
Mexico, and then she does something called Mothership in Florida. But I remember the first time, and some of these festivals are crazy. The first time I went there, I remember her saying, if you lost, I said, this is just the fans, and it just feels so safe. And she said, listen, if your kid wandered off, you could be assured that somebody would feed them, put suntan lotion on them, be with them, and then return them at the end of the day. You would have no worries. And that's kind of the vibe
great.
it was.
yeah, that's the kind of feeling you want to have,
Well, back to what Evelyn was saying. The one thing that surprised me about the music business was that people don't hang out like you thought they would. You think
They used to.
you think they would just all hang out all the time. And I remember when I was at UMG, I worked with Vince Gill and got him, worked with him to do the CMT Crossroads with Sting. And I was like, oh, this is going to be the best hang ever. Well, they never hung out. They were on stage together. Then they went to separate parts of the building. And I was like,
I know, it's sad. And they admire each other or they
I
wouldn't
know,
be there.
but people don't. And now, if artists of any level of success is working nonstop, so they don't have time to hang out.
Right.
Right. Brandy is working all the time. She's not.
Well, her
hanging out
festival, you know what her festival is for? She's not about money, making money. It's an experience. It's like she wants to bring all her friends together, people she admires. She did this thing called the Titans of Americana, and it was Brandy Clark, Mary Chapin Carpenter, and Kim Ritchie, because she wanted homage to them. She said they're the OGs, and they were so thrilled to be on that stage, and people, but that's why she wants to hang out. But when you talk about, when we go back to now and then, and I can only talk Nashville specific, I do miss it. When we were a smaller town and we had 3 places to eat and we had 3 clubs, you saw everybody.
Went to
That's right.
Maud's Courtyard on Wednesdays
Maud's
and
Courtyard, the
Thursdays.
Gold Rush,
Yep.
which they're rebuilding now.
Yeah. But there was, it's so spread. It's just, our world is
And
spread out.
songwriters
Yeah.
used to get together and play their songs for each other. Back, before they had to write with the people that they were, conscripted to write with. People would play. They would have, little shows for each other at their houses and stuff. I don't know if that goes on anymore because everybody's so stuck with their group.
I think it does in those smaller groups. I think they do.
I think songwriters still support each other, and that's,
yeah.
and there's
there's a
still
lot
here,
of
but, yeah.
more, there's like the song suffragettes. There's more avenues for songwriters. It wasn't just Douglas Corner and the
12th and
Bluebird
Porter.
and 12, there was 3 or 4 places. Of course, and it was smaller. We had a smaller community. Everybody in the world
everybody
just
were
moved
in
here.
little houses on,
Oh my God, the little
16th
houses.
and
But,
17th.
I wonder I think they don't have as many showcases as they used to, because
No,
now
they don't. What happened to showcases?
everybody's TikTok and
Yeah, that's your showcase.
yeah.
I remember I loved it when I first moved here, because showcases were at 6 o'clock in LA.
so
They were at
ex-
11:30 and 12 at night.
Right.
It's
I
like,
love
this
the
is-
showcases.
I thought it was so, when I first got here, I was like, oh, it's so exciting. I get to go to a showcase. Oh my gosh.
Oh my God.
I haven't been to one in years
I haven't
now.
either.
We used to laugh.
I went to Ashley McBride's. I remember that. That was unforgettable.
I went to Shelby Lynn Showcase.
Wow.
Yeah, I went Mary Chapin. You sit there and look at all the people you first saw, and
Yeah.
it's fun.
Speaking of Shelby, someone I love is Allison Moore.
oh yeah,
Yeah, she's great.
extraordinary, and she is so smart and
She's
so
so-
deep
so
and so
great.
thoughtful.
She is so deep and thoughtful. I
Oh.
agree. She's a doll. I
You
love
know who
Allison.
showcase I saw was Katie Lang's.
Oh,
Oh,
my God.
Do you remember that?
I
Where
was
she
there, yeah.
was with the chair and the one light
Was it at the
Oh.
16th? No, that place that Warner used to have that was on Music Row? Because I actually saw her at the Anti Club in LA, and when I lived in LA. But then I think the showcase here was that weird.
No, I think it was like 12th and Porter or
Was
something.
it? Yeah.
And, you know, it was just her on a stage, and she had a lighting rig
Right.
and a chair, and she'd move them around. And it was the most wonderful show I had ever seen.
She
So
was an
good.
extraordinary
Phenomenal.
artist, and not one that fell between the cracks.
Yeah.
No, she had a great career. She has a great
Yeah.
career.
I think
is,
she just
you know,
decided what she wanted. Yeah.
Yeah,
She's still.
Remember
it seems
the,
like Brandy Carlisle. She picked what her route was going to be, and she's enjoying
Remember
it.
the Vanity Fair cover with her laid back in a barber chair and Cindy Crawford and like
Yes,
a
yes.
swimsuit shaving her? Yeah.
That's the one where George was in it with Leanne Womack.
Oh, yeah.
Annie Leibovitz did
Oh,
the
they did a
photograph.
huge. Remember he did the huge country spread.
Mhm.
And Vanity
Yeah.
Fair did that. Yeah, that was
Yeah,
a big
Annie
deal.
Leibovitz, in fact, sent me the photograph, you know, as a gift. for
Nice.
Oh,
us.
wow.
I will tell you that 2 or 3 years ago, I really lost interest in country music, and I thought, well, you know, it's just me, and maybe it's my age,
We talked
or
about
maybe I
this.
got
Yeah.
other things. You know, I'm doing different things now. And then I talked to Leslie and Tracy, and they're like, "Oh, we feel the same way,"
Mhm.
and so do a lot of people. And I was like, "Okay, well, maybe I'm just aging out." But I will say, it's getting good again. I
Yeah.
love Lainey
You think
Wilson. I
so?
love Jelly Roll. I love Zach Bryan.
Yeah.
I love Luke
Yeah.
Combs. I love Cody Johnson.
I love Cody Johnson
So
too.
it's good. I mean, it's
It
getting
does
good
seem like
again.
the music's getting
Yeah,
better, and
yeah.
it seems to be more independence in
Yeah.
terms of how
But
the
for a
people
while,
are coming
there
in.
and a
like-
little variety. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
For a while, there were no originators. There was no
No.
Bob Dylan. There
I
was no
felt
Bruce
like the
Springsteen.
same
There was
way.
nobody writing anything that phenomenal. And the songs were just indistinguishable.
They were, and I
Yeah.
think it was 15 people writing the same
The
song.
same
I think so
song,
too.
And
same
I
players.
felt the same way. Like as I started moving, you know, like I would say that some of the stuff I loved about country all of a sudden became Americana, the Lucinda
Right,
Williams and, you know, and the Buddy Millers and the guys who were writing these great, and Jason Isbell and Brandy. That's kind of where I morphed in because I was listening. And again, I made my career on country music and loved it more than anybody. And I would listen to the radio and go, there's nothing.
There was nothing.
I'm not
I mean,
inspired at
That's
all.
how I felt, and I just stopped listening. I haven't listened to country radio,
Yeah.
truthfully, in 10 years. I have no idea, but
I listened
I'll
to
see
it.
these little people get through on TV shows or something that perk my interest, and it does seem to be a lot more variety than there was.
Yeah.
And to me, one of the interesting things is the way Americana has sort of come up in that time from when it first came around and nobody paid attention
Right.
to what it is now. And it seems to be the format that, you know, everybody's embracing and sort of crediting as country if they're outside the country field.
Right.
Well, I love how the 20-somethings love music from the 90s. I heard a song on the radio today that it has singing about
Oh, yeah.
90s country music. And, you know, I feel like we were there for the tail of the good old days. Like we miss the Georgia, Tammy and Willie and Waylon, but we were there late 80s, early
Yeah.
90s. We had the whole country music boom when there would be 2 or 3 gold and platinum parties every week.
There
Yeah.
would be.
It
That's
was
right.
so exciting. And you
Alan
got
Jackson, Clint Black, Travis Tritt, Trisha
Unbelievable.
Yearwood,
Yeah.
Laurie.
I'm going to see Clint Black. I guess Friday is doing the 30th anniversary
God,
of
that's
Killing
hard to
Time.
believe.
30th
years.
anniversary of Killing Time.
his daughter's a singer-songwriter and is adorable. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's so we were lucky to be there.
Yeah.
You know.
I figure we were lucky to be involved in the
Yeah.
music business. We've all been so blessed to be
You
involved.
all have had phenomenal
Oh, God, yeah.
careers.
Well,
So have you.
Yeah.
Look at
yeah,
you.
look at
Yeah.
your careers.
Y'all are the OGs. though.
Yeah. I mean, we're gonna get
Oh,
out of here. And
being
you're gonna write
old.
that book.
Old and
But you know,
OG
hey,
is
listen.
not
And by the way,
old.
let's talk about that for a second. Why do we, you know, and I'm really on this about, you know, we talk about sexism and everything. We don't talk about ageism,
Ageism.
and how, especially for women. And there are people, you know, I was sitting at the table. There's a Rolodex. I'm using an old word. A Rolodex. Everybody listening, is these little
Yeah.
cards that. But you know, I
Told
use
you
that-
that people's phone numbers.
yeah, where you had phone numbers. But you know, there's just such sometimes I see with businesses, you know, why not? You know, I get young youth, you know, we all wanted that, but there is something to people who have had these old relationships, have seen where the business is, because I don't think, and you don't know where it's going until you know where it's been. And I think that they just get discarded. People with that kind of
Well, they
wisdom.
do. I'll say
Yeah.
that, you know, if what you all say is true, we had these extraordinary careers, I had a big career in PR and then the label and all. But the reality is, I retired fairly young. Mainly because George died and we just didn't feel like starting up again. But nonetheless, not one company has ever asked me to consult. And I'm supposed to be this great expert in all these different things. And I was so acclaimed and I know so many people.
Right.
I know every loser guy in town that basically maybe failed upwards, sideways, downwards.
Right.
They all got consulting gigs
They
at
did.
some
They all
point
got
or
They
another.
took care of each other.
Yeah,
Right.
they took
They
care
did.
of each
That's the
other.
thing.
What?
Yeah.
They take care of each other.
They do. And women, it's like, we're getting ready to do a photo shoot tomorrow. I don't want to do a photo shoot. I feel like I'm so old.
No, don't
look
do
so
don't
old.
like that.
No, but that's the deal.
Yeah.
But that's the reality is, particularly for women, you just, you're gone.
Well, I think anybody generally, unless you're like connected at the top, if you're like you get laid off, let's say there's a corporate merger and you don't do anything for about 18 months, you're about to be
gone.
obsolete.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. Some people say, but I look what I've done, and I go, look, but you haven't been doing it for 5. When people go, I'm ready to get back because everything changes so fast. It's up to us. And I will say, for times I've left a label on my choice or not, I had to keep, I could sit still for 2 days, and then I kind of had to reinvent myself and be out there because they do. You're forgotten.
Yeah, you have reinvented yourself a lot.
So many
has
times.
Beverly.
Yeah,
But mine wasn't on purpose. Mine was just, oh, that sounds good. I'll do that.
Yeah, mine was sometimes, I don't know. Look,
I know, but when you
and,
became the head of MTSU, that was like a huge switch.
Yes. But I'd already been keep in mind, I've been at MTSU full time since 1995.
yeah,
Most
because you were
people don't
teaching.
realize
You were
that.
teaching.
I've been a
right?
professor the whole
Yeah.
time. I did take a leave of absence when I went to UMG, like 2010 to 2012, and then I came back to MTSU. But the job is very different. But I'm in the same college I've been in for 30 years.
But you're the only female in that job in town.
Well, that's not true. Brittany Schaefer is now
went to
dean
Belmont.
at Belmont. So both
At Belmont?
She replaced Doug Howard when he retired. So you have women running both prominent music business schools.
That's good.
I'm the first female dean ever in my position, but we have 3 or 4 other female deans at MTSU. And at one point, there was a minute where I was the only female dean because people left and retired. And now that we have a female business dean, education dean, library dean, liberal arts dean, and we all support each other.
That's fantastic because not at Vanderbilt, there's
And
not a
it's
female
huge. I
dean.
can tell you it is such a difference now
Yeah.
that they're there. We have each other's backs, and it gives me confidence.
But see, that's why I think that what's different now, Evelyn, is like, again, you have women running, like the guys, like you said, they took care of each other. They would call somebody laid off. I gave you a consultant gig.
Right,
and I think that was the difference.
Right, out
and
on
there
the
wasn't
golf
enough.
course, they
We didn't
take
have
care of
women
it.
in those positions
Yeah,
to do that.
yeah.
And that is a wonderful thing. Like Luke Lewis did that a lot. He took care of a lot of people. He'd give them office space, consulting gigs, and that's wonderful. We just got to get women to those places that then they can take care of other women. So we don't want to take anything away from the men. We love men. We just want women to have the same opportunities.
We're going to end this with, you guys have to write the book. Me and Beverly will write it. Me and Beverly, you guys are the greatest. I mean, there's so much to what you've done, and just that you're here now doing this podcast still as friends for how many years now?
30 at least.
And you
40.
met because of the business, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We met at the Merchant Hotel, and they were
Because I was
doing a cocktail party announcement of something, a Marlboro Country Music Tour.
Oh my God, I remember that.
I know,
That
and
was a
Evelyn
big
was
deal.
representing Randy, and I
Yeah.
was working for Liz Steels, and I was
remember.
representing Tammy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And I remember George Strait was there, and Janice Azrak, and Ronna Rubin, and Susan Niles, who all worked at Warner Brothers, were so excited that we all sat on poor George Strait's lap and had a picture taken.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. There's that to me, that's, I don't know. I think that's a phenomenal story about you guys and, just what you've done, and just, you're like I said, OGs.
If not for you all, we wouldn't have careers. So thank
Mm-hmm.
you for that.
Well, I don't think that that's true.
No.
How about just say thank you, Susan?
Thank
Let's
you.
just go positive.
She's so good at that. You
I know.
If you take a
Beverly's
compliment, Beverly's like, no, just say thank you. I've learned.
Own your success. Own what you've done.
Well, thank you,
You all have
Beverly.
made a
Thank you,
huge
Beverly.
difference in the industry.
And Tracy. We enjoyed talking
This
to
was
you
a great
girls.
podcast.
This
It was
was
really
fun.
informative for me.
Anyhow, we want to thank you ladies for doing
you.
our show.
It
and
was so
for having a
fun.
nice
Thank
Yeah, thank you
conversation.
for taking time out of your busy schedules, which I know you both have.
Because you're jacks of all trades.
Yeah.
Masters of none.
Thank you all.
Yay.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to subscribe and we'll be sure to catch you off guard. So light one up and lighten up. Share and tell your friends, then rate, review, and subscribe. Don't be quiet about this. We need you to tell everyone.
And we mean everyone. We are putting our faith in your hands.
We are.
For more information on the podcast, please visit www.shadyladiesofmusiccity.com.
Shady Ladies of Music City is recorded and produced in Nashville, Tennessee, and presented by the Morris Hyam Management.
Our executive producer is Clint Hyam.
Our producer is Kyle Quigley.
Our engineer and editor is Robert Schaefers. Robert has also written and performed our theme music.